Right, boys and girls, what I want to show you is a better explanation of the syncro ring hub plungers, because I didn't make it very clear in the last video, and I'd made a slight mistake on how they operate. If you remember, this one's assembled now. This is the one with the two. This is the one with the two plungers in. There's one plunger just in there. There's one plunger just in there, and I've held them in with a bit of grease so that they don't slide out while I'm making the video. But the three holes that you can see there in the hub, that's the bottom of the spring, and the ball pushes through there and it clips into this syncro hub. And I'll just show you exactly what I mean on the first gear one. You have your three springs like so, and you have a ball bearing like so, and when you've got all three of them in, you slide the hub slides over, and that presses in, those ball bearings press in, and the hold the synchro in, so it can slide like so without coming off the hubs, because the ball bearing and the springs then roll around, the balls then roll around in that groove around there, so they can't come out. That locks it into situ there. Right, and now if you remember, I told you about the plunger. What the plunger does, I showed you the indent. When it's assembled, you'll see that one of the teeth have an indent, and this is the indent here. I can show you the indent right there. Now that indent, if you look, is tapered. It's not just a little indent in there, it's tapered. And what that does is, when you assemble, when you put the plunger through the hub, it sits in here, and when it's not in gear, the plunger sits like that. When the selector fork pushes the gear, this plunger will slide down that tapered arm, and it will then push this plunger back out through the edge of the hub. Like, instead of it being recessed, that's how it sits. That's how it sits like that, with the plunger just barely sticking out like so. And then as this tapered notch slides down as it goes into gear, it pushes that plunger in like so, and it pushes it out the other side like that. So that's what it would be like inside the hub. That plunger then in turn, and I'm going to show you the third and fourth gear. You'll see there's an offset, there's a little groove there cut out in the main shaft, and then about a third of the way around there's another one cut out here. Because this is the third and fourth gear, this hub has to slide that way and that way. It has to slide two ways to engage with the different gears. Those plungers that are in that hub, the one that I've got assembled right here, those plungers that are in that hub will slide on that tapered ring like I showed you, and it'll push it out into each selective gear. So as this outer part slides, it pushes the plunger onto the respective locator on the main shaft. Now on the first gear there's only one, because it's only engaging the first and second gear. There's no synchro on the first gear, so it doesn't obviously have to move the other ways as much. So the short stud that you can see poking out of that hub, I can show you it without it, but that hole where the plunger goes, when it's just bear with me 1 minute. It would happen on the video, but what happens is that hole, you can see there, if the plunger was in there, I'll put it the wrong way around. If the plunger was in there and it locks onto the balk ring like so, if you look, you can't see it, I can see it with my naked eye, but that engages in that slot. That plunger will engage in that slot when the outer hub on that taper, it'll push that in there, and it locks that gear on that shaft while it's selecting the gear, so that it doesn't move to make it jump out of gear. Because if you were selecting the fork would be selecting like this, backwards and forwards as you're rotating the gear. It will move along this shaft, pushing that plunger into there to lock that shaft, to stop it from doing that, because it would move that bit and that would make it jump out of gear. So it does actually lock it onto the shaft, but not in the way that I thought originally. So I hope that's cleared it up. And that's on the first gear. It doesn't really matter which shaft, which one you put it on, because there's a groove all the way around on every spline. Whereas the third and fourth one, they only correspond in one position. Although you can put this shaft on in any location on the spline, whichever one it fits on, you've got to ensure that the two plungers, are located so that they go on the corresponding grooves. So it's in this instance, it would be, well, the plunger's just coming out now. In this instance, I can see that the plunger's barely sticking out there. So in this instance, that plunger would have to go onto that part of the gear like so. And when this then slides along like so, it pushes one of those plungers out and it's locked that gear in, look. When the gear is off there and it's in neutral for that gear, that hub will slide off. So when you're dismantling this main shaft, just be careful, because you'll do what I did and you'll pull it out and you won't realise that the two plungers are in there. But when it goes into the next gear, well, it would go that way, but I can't push it because it's quite hard. But as it goes into gear like so, that shaft is then locked in place. So those plungers, although they don't have any springs, the taper, which I've shown you, and you can see how hard they are to spot, because with them being up against the black casing, if you don't, there, that taper now, I don't know if you can quite see that taper now. There, you can see it now. That's tapered, and that is what the plunger, that's what's actuating the plunger. When it's not in gear, that plunger will be at this end of the taper, and as soon as you select the fork will move it along, and it'll in turn, it pushes that plunger out and locks it. And in the case of the first gear, it locks it onto that part of the shaft there. You can see that gear is locked on there now, look. But if I selected neutral, it would just drop off there. I won't do it because I'll end up losing all the springs and balls out of there again. Now, so hopefully that's made it a little bit clearer for you. So although the plungers don't have a spring, they are actuated by the tapered outer hub. So thanks very much for watching, and I hope I'm not boring you, but that would be very important for you to realise. And if you didn't know that, you could probably lose those little pins and wonder where they ever came from in the first place. And also, if you do buy any gears, etc., off second-hand gears, or you think you're getting a bargain, just make sure that you've got these little pins that they come with them, because I don't know what price the small ones are, because I didn't price them. I think they're probably, if they're half the price of the big one, they'd be 20 quid. The bigger ones are 40 quid, I believe, with postage. So you've got 80 quid, you've got 100 quid in 3 of those little pins, and that adds up to a lot of money if you're buying the new gears, etc. So thanks very much for watching, and I hope I'm not boring you. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't giving anybody any misleading information. So that's what I found out. Thanks to Stuart Morgan and Andy Hodgson for helping me achieve this result, because as I said, it's I didn't know anything about these gearboxes, and I've never seen anything regarding the syncro measurings or anything like that. I'm waiting for parts to come, and I haven't decided yet on what parts I'm going to put in, whether I'm putting any new gears or anything in there. I'm putting some bearings in, etc, etc, and a couple of other bits and pieces I've got coming, but I'll make a decision when I've seen some good gears. So I've got balk rings, of course, coming as well. So thank you very much for watching. If you're liking the channel, give us a thumbs up, because it's always encouraging to know that, and subscribe if you want to. If you don't and you just want to watch the videos, that's fine also. I don't put any adverts on the channel. I'm not into all the advertising. I just want to give people an idea of the car gearbox. If you've got the Wolseley, same as I have. I know it's the Healy gearbox, but the 4-speed are different to the 3-speed. There's all sorts of other things that are slightly different. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and that's to correct the earlier video where I made a little bit of a mistake. So thank you.